I've been introduced to Breda on one other occasion in Kilkenny. I find her straight talking, and I honestly feel that people in this area should have honesty and straight talking, and I feel that the independence time is now. As far as personally, with my accent, you take it down from the north of Ireland, but I have been campaigning with Maureen Sullivan, meeting various politicians. I had a rude awakening dealing with government departments, especially the Department of Justice, where you think that there would be a level playing field, and there would be justice. And there isn't. They're either stalling you through the politicians and the civil service, or alternatively, when you ask ministers awkward questions, they're like rabbits in the headlights. So I feel that the two-party system generally has not worked and will not work, simply because of the cosy relationship that they have and their cronies. So really, tonight is looking at it in a different way, give the independents a chance, and they're not tied up with the party system where they lose the party whip if they go against the wishes of the elite. So again, it's a question of free thinking, speak your mind, and have honest politicians. So I'd like to introduce Maureen Sullivan here, and Maureen will tell you how she, in fact, has been fighting her campaign, and also how people like Breda Gardner can support and help her through her cause.
Hello, good evening everyone. I started my case, I think it must be nearly 15 years back now, and I have to say I know Breda quite a good few years, and she's always been behind me, always very supportive, and but I can assure you we got a lot of doors closed on us. We found it so difficult to get anywhere, and eventually when we did, I mean, it all looked great on the television. You had Enda Kenny giving the apology, and it was marvellous. But behind the scenes, his apology wasn't all that genuine at all. A lot of the Magdalen women got pittance. The medical card, they haven't got it yet. It's not going to be the medical card that was promised. We've been told that today. And we can't fight our cases properly. When the women said that they were longer in these institutions, they were told, well, you're only getting 2 years. When they were trafficked from one institution to another, they can't fight that because that institution doesn't come in to the pre-mit. So now they have another fight on their hands. They asked that they didn't want solicitors because it turned out in the industrial schools that the solicitors ended up with more money than the survivors. So they said to cut that out, that they do without solicitors, and trusted the government and hoped that the Justice Department would do right by them. But now it turns out that they have to turn it all around and bring barristers and solicitors in. So the whole thing is a total mess. We have another judge now that's sitting on the mother and baby home situation, and they're bringing some of the Magdalens back in, and their cases have to be gone over again, go through your story again, go through the whole trauma again. So politicians, I'm the last one to ever say to anybody that any of them is any good. I think when they get up there they can't do nothing, but I have to say that I would vote the independents. I'd say give them a chance. Breda's the most honest person I think, that I've ever met. If she can't help you, she'll tell you. She can't change the world overnight. Nobody can do that. But she'll give it a try, and she'll do her best, and she'll be totally honest and say, well, look, we can't do this. There's nothing I can do. We took it this far. And I mean, that's, I think, what people want to know. That's what they're not hearing. They're just thrown there, left aside. Nobody gets back to them. They're lost. They don't know where they are. And it's very unfair. And I think it's nice if a politician comes back to you and says, look, I can't take it any further than this. There's nothing can be done. At least then you can get on with your life and you can close the door on it. But the way things are today, I think everybody's just in a mess with it. But I'd say Breda is the most honest person that I've ever met, and I know that when she says she'll do something, she'll do it. So my advice is give the independents a chance, and I think we'll see a new Ireland.
Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, look, a nice little speech organised here, but we're a small group. There's no need for standing on ceremony, so there's not. I met Breda shortly after my own election to the Shannon, and I'm the first ever, and I mean the first ever in the history of the state, independent senator elected in this country since 1937. And why am I telling you that? Not because I was elected, but because they got it so badly wrong when they tried to pull a stroke, they gave me the seat. That's the truth of the matter. Now, Breda has done exactly the same thing in Kilkenny. She has landed herself in there as an independent, but not only has she landed herself onto the council as an independent, she has actually stood up and taken them on. And she has made huge waves right across the country. Breda Gardner's name is well known in Dublin, so it is because she challenged the executive of Kilkenny County Council and wasn't afraid to do it. And she did it for all the right reasons. I don't know whether she will win or lose or draw, but at the end of the day she had the courage to stand up, while all the old political hacks that have been hanging around for the last 40 or 50 years were quite prepared to sit back and take the soup and to hell with everybody around them. And that, I mean this in the nicest possible way. The woman is the essence of honesty. That's my belief, and in the times that I've known her, she's hardworking, she's deeply committed. I think probably her original training as a nurse brings out that caring, empathetic side that's missing in an awful lot of the hard-nosed politicians that I meet. She is asked to move from the cat's cage into the lion's den of Leinster House, and she's asking the people of Carlow Kilkenny to put her there. Now, some might say she's insane to even think about that, but my own belief is we need people like Breda to come to Leinster House. The shenanigans that go on up there from day to day is unbelievable. You've got to be there to understand exactly what they are doing with your time, your money, your resources. We have situations where, in the Senate, we have situations where amendments or bills are brought to the Senate. Everybody in the room speaks in favour of them, and then you put them to a vote and they vote against them. And you go and you ask them, what's going on here, lads? And they say, oh, well, we were told to vote against that. So even on the most moral issues, there was an issue recently with David Norris who brought a bill on the issue of direct provision. Every single senator that spoke said what a great idea it was, what a wonderful piece of legislation it was, and it was long overdue. There were children in direct provision for 14, 15 and 16 years. And Norris said, fine, we'll put it to a vote now. We've got the wind in our sails. And he lost the vote. I've done it myself on betting, and I've lost the vote. There is a need for independence. Now, the story abroad is if you bring independents into Leinster House, so they won't agree on anything. They'll all fall apart in a short period of time. I work with independent TDs every day in Dáil and in Leinster House, and I see how they work together. I see how they debate, how they agree, and sometimes how they agree to disagree, but not fall out. And that's slightly different than what happens in Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil or Labour. In Fianna Fáil or Labour or Fine Gael, if they fall out, they lose the whip and leave the party. And we've already seen a number of Fine Gael people, that's where Renew has come from. We've already seen Labour people having to jump ship because they simply cannot suck up the nonsensical behaviour that's going on anymore. Party politics in Ireland has let us down. Let us down badly. And not only that, in Carlow Kilkenny now they have the audacity to put forward a Fianna Fáil candidate who is already steeped, family history, steeped in Fianna Fáil politics, which brought us to the disaster that we're currently in. Carlow Kilkenny now needs somebody who will stand up and give leadership. And I believe that Breda has what it takes to give leadership to the people of Carlow Kilkenny. There will be arguments made that she's a novice. She's not a long time at it. Do you know the great thing about being a novice is you don't know the rules. So when you go in, you can say anything you want, and believe you me, you'll see after a very short period of time when you walk in, they all straighten up because they don't know what you're going to say today, because you are totally unpredictable. You don't play by their rules. And incidentally, the notion that Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Labour are all at each other's throats, let's be honest about it, they're all interested in one thing and one thing only, and that is maintaining their position to go back where they came from. Indeed, the Magdalene ladies were promised the ends of the earth. That was all lovely for the TV screens, and once the TV cameras went away, then they pulled the plug on that and they came out with a worse deal than was available. What we need is somebody up there with compassion. Somebody who understands what it's like for ordinary people. Somebody who knows what it's like to walk into a hospital and see trolleys, one after the other, lined up with people who are ill, too ill to be on trolleys. We need somebody who understands that type of society. I believe, and I have travelled twice from Dublin, and I will travel again from Dublin to support Breda. I believe Breda will deliver a voice for Carlow and Kilkenny. She will raise the issues that concern the people of Carlow and Kilkenny. She will not be silenced. I'm not saying she's going to bring down a gold mine to ye or have ye all getting medical cards overnight or whatever. That's just not the way it works. But what she will do is she will shine a torch into the dirty little corners there are in Irish politics, and she will expose the nonsense that goes on. I'm asking you tonight, there's a small group of you here, if every one of you go out of here tonight and tell 5 people that you met an honest woman here, and ask them to tell 5 more people, in a very short space of time, we could see Breda running as the forerunner. I can tell you from a discussion I had as late as lunchtime today in Breda, I spoke to some people in the Dáil, and they're afraid of her. They are afraid of her, right? A woman with very little by way of resources. She's just a single woman here with her family, trying to do a job for the people of Carlow and Kilkenny. She's done an excellent job for Kilkenny so far. So, look, I'm willing to put everything I have behind her. I have no money, but I'll put my voice and I'll help her in any way I can. I'm asking you guys, talk to 5 people. When you've spoken to them, ask them to speak to 5 more. And let's, out of the little acorn, build a great, great big oak tree here. Because I think this woman will be able to carry it on her shoulders. So I'm sorry about the lovely speech I have, but that's all I got to say about Breda. So thank you.
You said enough. I would like to introduce Breda Gardner, and hopefully she has a speech.
I have a speech. Thank you, Ernie, and thank you, Maureen, and thank you, Gerard. I really appreciate your lovely, kind comments. Apologies for my husband, Sherry. He's in the show, Sweeney Todd, and the show must go on, so that's why he's not here. And for my son, Fionn, as well, he's can't be here as well, so apologies. I just want to start off with a little quote. Indeed, I was just looking for little words of wisdom in politics, and I came across this quote from Ronald Reagan, and it says, "Government's view of the economy could be summed up in a few short phrases. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidise it." And indeed, the most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And I found, and it's true indeed, because since I got in as a county councillor in Kilkenny, I found it, you know, my profession was a nurse, and I run a natural health clinic, and I found that a lot of people, I actually love listening to people's problems. I'm sad really, but I do love listening to people's problems, because I'm always looking for solutions and how people can actually help themselves. So I suppose that's why I kind of found myself in politics. I didn't look for politics, I always say to people through the Positive Living talks, know what you want. It's hard to believe, I never really wanted politics. I think politics wanted me, if that makes sense. It came on my path and it ventured on that way, and every little jigsaw piece just seemed to fit in together. So here I am, and I'm actually now almost a year in Kilkenny County Council as the only independent female lady, and it's a little bit lonely. And if it wasn't, I think, for the people of Kilkenny who are there guiding me at all times, it's them that actually drives me on. It's them that gives me the encouragement. And I love helping people. I just love reaching out and helping people. So here we are, positive change. What is it do we want? Well, I suppose I'll start with the health, because that's where I am. I was a nurse for 17 years. And I suppose, what do we want for health? Well, I sit on the health forum. And again, I sit by default. It was by default I got into it, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And I do believe in universal health care. I think that health should be for the people of necessity. And I believe that it should be properly funded from the centralised taxation and properly managed as well. We need to put the patient first, devolve powers to a local level, cut bureaucracy, and follow working practices that are fair and just. Absolute protection, I believe, of the sick, the vulnerable, and the disabled. When I see ministers arguing and denying health cards to very sick children, I hold my head in despair. I know we have the medical card for the under 6, but maybe we should have a fairer system that some people can afford medical cards, not necessarily that are under 6, but maybe we should really be looking at medical cards for the very, very sick children that are really needed out of necessity. So again, a universal health care system along the lines of the NHS in England would be a better solution, paid for from central taxation. Again, I always say on the Health Forum, I've been a nurse, I looked at the science of health and well-being. I also am now working at the energy of the person and the healing aspect of it. And I do believe that holistic therapies ought to become available within the hospital services. And we see that already in the questionnaire or the solace centres, the cancer care centres, where the holistic practitioners are working with the client, looking at their whole aspect of their mind, body and spirit. And it is actually slowly but surely going into the hospitals. And I'm always, I suppose, standing up for the holistic practitioners and bring the science and the energy together. And that way I do believe then, and only then, can we get waiting lists that will be reduced in the hospitals. I'm big into preventative health and health education. I do feel that there's only 2 or 3% of taxpayers' money that goes into preventative health. So I do believe that more money should go into preventative health, whether it's into mindfulness, whether it's into prevention of suicide, and you know, awareness, more awareness within the schools. And socially, better housing policies and fairer rent. You know, I have people, I suppose, since I got in as a councillor, I have people ringing me up wanting homes. There's a lot of couch surfing going on at the moment. People sleeping on couches. Where some people, I represented a person there last week, where the landlord had given him his bed and he was sleeping on the couch. And we had to get him into services, and with a lot of persuasion got him in there. And you know, it's not easy. It's not easy for these people, and there are a lot of good-hearted people out there, because I'm meeting them in the community, that are helping so many other people. And there is goodwill. And indeed, I have, you know, people wanting more, or maybe a warmer home, insulation in the house, and a lot of people are complaining. And yes, they have a right to complain, but sometimes you get fed up complaining. So I said to one guy recently, I said, when you stop complaining, I'll come and visit you. So I had to cancel 3 visits because he was still complaining. And the 4th time I spoke to him and I said to him, look, would you please just write down what it is that you're so grateful for in your life? And he said, Breda, I can't read and I can't write. And I said, well, you know what, I'll do it with you. I said, we'll sit down together and we'll work out what it is, you know, that you do want. And I said, on one condition, I said, I'll help you, but I want you to think about what I'm about to say. And I said, would you please ever consider going back, learning to read and write? He was adamant no, but we're at a stage now where he says, I'm thinking about it. And I will do everything in my power to help him just get on that. And I told him a story indeed about another person who couldn't read and write, and it has changed their life immensely. So we come across lots of little different things like that to help people in the community. So better rural services. And again, if we're serious about protecting rural Ireland, we have to accept that there's a cost in keeping our village post offices, our bus routes alive, in place, small schools open, and so on. I believe that it is a cost worth paying. Rural Ireland is part of the fabric of Ireland, part of who we are, part of what attracts us as a tourist destination. I would also like to see the role indeed of the superb LEADER programme beefed up more to support the provision of better local services in areas such as local charity shops, enterprise and job creation, and community tourist and heritage facilities. And this is something that the community is part of, it's the heart, it's who we are. Where I'm from in Thomastown, the School of Food, it's up, it's running catering courses, it's getting farmers to bring in their products, to bring them out on a very local level, starting local and hopefully building and spreading it out. Indeed, we have here called Bruce and Steve's Sausages. They're here in Carlow at the Farmers Market, and they make their product in the School of Food, where they have the kitchen that they can rent out and bring their products to the farmers market. Again, improved road safety. I am very much a believer of implementing Jake's Law. Jake's Law is where residential housing estates can have speed humps and a 20-kilometre sign, so that the safety of the children is paramount. This is a no-brainer, this is common sense. This is something that ought to be implemented instead of, you know, waiting for an accident to happen. Safety comes first. Okay. Equal rights and justice for all. One of the reasons why I got involved in politics in the first place was, like what Gerard said, I'm anyone who gets into politics, I'm very sensitive to injustice. And that really makes my blood boil. When I find that there's injustice there, I will keep doing everything in my power that I can to bring the truth to the surface. And that is an incident that's happened, I suppose, in Kilkenny, where over the Central Access Scheme, I have been, from the beginning, I have said I was against the Central Access Scheme. I still am. I don't believe building a big massive bridge, concrete bridge, bringing it into this beautiful medieval city is the answer. I do believe that tourism and heritage go side by side, and the medieval mile is something that Kilkenny we're so proud of. And I still believe that the Central Access Scheme is in the wrong place, not within the beautiful medieval mile. Again, equal rights and justice for all. It saddens me when people say that only people who can get justice in Ireland are the very rich or the very poor who have nothing to lose. Marriage equality. I support Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour and Sinn Féin in their support for gay marriage. As a close family friend who is gay said to me, you can't choose who you love. Animal rights. I grew up in a farm in rural County Galway, and I'm a great animal lover, especially our 2 dogs, Sonny and Sylvie. For centuries, rescuing animals should not mean putting down animals. I would also like to see tougher penalties on those who abuse animals. On the economy, fairer taxation. I do believe the answer to Ireland's woes is to simply tax the rich. I do think it is fair, however, that people who have lots of money would contribute and not be allowed to avail of tax avoidance schemes. Taxes on bins, water, coal, and so on are not fair. Rich and poor pay the same. I am in favour of some higher taxation on people earning more than 100,000 per year, and the introduction of measures to ensure people earning over 250,000 must comply with the minimum effective tax rate of 30%. Other parties have some good ideas on fairer taxation, and I would support them on this. I also believe we need to come down much harder on the tax dodgers. That means greater powers for revenue to pursue offenders, no political interference, public naming, and prison sentences. Better support for small businesses and community-based employment. Indeed, I support Gerard Craughwell, I support Stephen Donnelly and Shane Ross on their views that they have on the economic. They're the experts. I'm big into health and education. I won't say I'm an expert on economics. I'm learning as I go along. So I do like reading their articles, indeed, in the paper, and what their views that they do share. Flexible social welfare system to incentivize workers to take on temporary and seasonal work. In other words, there are some people who are drawing the dole, who actually get more money than getting the minimum wage. We have to change that, because I don't think it's fair. Why would people work if they feel they get more money just sitting idle? Something has to be done to make the people want to take pride and feeling a sense of purpose in their life. Making childcare tax deductible, making it easier for parents to return to work. A national independent bank, as promised by the current government, and mandating to lend to viable businesses, something that our banks seem reluctant to do. Stimulus packages, programs like the State Micro Enterprise Fund need to be given enough funding so that a real difference to the small, medium enterprises in the Irish economy. No privatisation of banks without reform. As I said, my knowledge is in the areas of health and education, but I believe there are just more simpler ways to be learned from the actual recession and the crash. Beefed up bank regulator to ensure that we do not lose the run of ourselves again. Reckless, incompetent or corrupt bankers, auditors and regulators held accountable for their actions. America managed to jail its corrupt bankers. You know, why not Ireland? We just feel the system doesn't serve us. Limit credit. No household in Ireland would have managed its affairs the way bankers, developers, government and regulators did. A little thrift, common sense and pragmatism might have saved us the worst ravages of the recession. More localised devolved powers. And again, Phil Hogan's reform of local government has largely been a major disaster. I would like to see the reinstatement of the city councils, more powers returned to local politicians. The power of unelected council officials also need to be curbed and monitored more closely. Greater democracy. I do support the reform of the Seanad, greater local democracy, proper accountability in public life. Okay, so what again about the water charge? I do feel the water charges, it's not about taxation, it's about conservation. Surely the 1 billion of money spent on meters would have been better spent on the crumbling infrastructure. I think the current charge for water is unfair. A family of 4 on a minimum wage pays the same as a millionaire family of 4. I propose that water be returned to local government and paid for via central taxation. Again, I would like to see the end of the whip system. And like what Gerard said, you put motions in and it's not, you can talk about it outside council chambers and everyone is in agreement. Absolutely, Breda, that sounds fantastic. I'll support you on that. We put it to a vote, we're voted down. And I turn to them and say, why? Why did you not vote? Well, you said you would. And they said, I couldn't, Breda. I had to vote with the whip. I was told to be in place. And it's sad, really, that people individually within the party can't vote from their heart, but they have to think and put their parties first, instead of the wishes of the people. Okay, I think I've rattled on enough. Lastly, I suppose, I just wanted to say one thing. I have a quote, another quote here if I can find it. I do believe that the government's first duty is to protect the people and to not ruin the people's lives. So really, as Gerard kindly said, and as Arnie and Maureen said, what I do stand for is greater truth, integrity, openness, fairness, common sense and honesty in politics. And I'm asking you here today, please take one brochure, not from the brochures, take maybe 5 or 6 brochures away with you today. Give them to your family and to your friends and ask them to share out. Please spread the word. As I said, politics chose me. I do believe I am meant to be here. And I do believe the way forward is to vote for independent because they care about the people. Thank you so much.